Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Totalbiscuit from the WoW podcast Blue Please over on CynicalBrit.com. I would like to give you a full run-through of the first Cataclysm 5-man dungeon. This is the Blackrock Caverns. Our group consists of 2 paladins, a healer and a tank, as well as a mage, a shaman, and a hunter. So let's kick it off right here. I should point out that I've sped up the entire video to 2 times normal speed and have removed the audio. The reason being that the audio is annoying, there is no voice acting in the beta as of yet, so there really isn't an awful lot to go with. I've replaced it with some music by Sean Beeson and Frank Klepacki, all music used with permission of the artist. Now those fire globules that you saw flying through the air there, yes, they do a fair amount of damage, so you don't want to be standing in them. You've got a few pulls here up to the first boss, and these are fairly simplistic. They usually consist of about 3 guys. Crowd control isn't really necessary. There's quite a few casters, but they don't really do anything all that dangerous to speak of. Trash packs later on will consist upwards of 5 to 6 mobs, and crowd control is fairly useful. Bear in mind, of course, this is the first dungeon, and this is on normal difficulty, so don't get too excited about the prospect of something uber hard, because it is not. However, you will probably see that this is a lot better than it could have been. I'll clear these out of the way, and we'll bring you onto the first boss, and I'll tell you what he does. Again, nothing to really worry about initially. As regards the aesthetic of this instance, you can clearly see it's a lot of fire. Lots of lava, lots of rocks. Nothing in particularly special as of yet, but there is a story to this instance to some degree, and I'll explain that a little bit later. Part of that story is our main tank jumping in the lava accidentally, and don't worry, we ribbed him about that one. So our way through here, and make sure that you avoid the patrolling boss, which is to the left there. Very close indeed. We actually pulled him the first time and indeed did wipe, because we are a bunch of scrubs. We managed to pull pretty much the entire room, plus the boss, and hey, we were dead. Okay, here we go. This first boss right here, he's a nice start of 10. He's really easy. I believe there are about 5 bosses in this particular instance. This one only has 2 abilities you need to worry about. The one that you just saw there causes a ground shake every once in a while. There'll be cracks form under the earth. If you stand in it, you will most likely die. And that one right there, the Chains of Woe, it pulls everyone to him and chains them, while he charges up a massive area of effect ability that will kill you if you stay in it. You have to kill the chains and get the hell out of there as soon as possible. That is basically it. Not too tricky, but hey, there you go. You don't really expect that from the first boss of the first instance in an expansion anyway. There we go. No problem whatsoever clearing that out of the way. And down he goes. Nice piece of kit there. Look at 153 agility. And who the hell is this guy? I still haven't figured this out. But whatever the case, he wants to punch things. And honestly, I'm not going to argue with him. He goes and annihilates the next set of trash. Now, you might think, oh, this makes it a little bit too easy. But if you looked at what the trash actually was and the amount of it, then you'll be grateful. You'll also note there that ridiculous stacking buff as he wrecks everything in sight. It is ridiculous. Pretty much, it's a little easy, but there you go. Just a little bit of a scripted event, and he does come back later. Now, as regards to the length of this instance, it is actually fairly long. Bearing in mind, I'm running this at double speed. This instance took us about 35 minutes, not including wipes. So, I believe, like I said, there's about 5 bosses in here, and it's of a fair size with a reasonable amount of trash. Okay, now, as far as I can tell, the storyline of this particular dungeon centers around the Twilight guys capturing this Twilight Drake and using its energy to build evolved Draconoids of their own. That's all I can really gather from it. I imagine that the full game will have quests related to it and a good amount of lore surrounding it, but at the moment, very little is known about how this instance actually goes in terms of the storyline, and to be honest, considering there are no quotes and no voice acting, you can't really get anything out of that either, so it's mostly guesswork. Now, as you can see, these evolved Draconoids are pretty tough, and they have a fairly nasty attack, so do watch yourself on these ones. These are big guys. These are the largest trash mobs you'll see in this dungeon. Now, the boss we're coming up to right now, we actually wiped on twice. She's not amazingly hard, but she will catch you unawares. you've got these 3 priest kind of guys, these zealots in front of her, and those will evolve very quickly into draconoids. You, as far as I'm aware, cannot stop this from happening. There may be a mechanic that we were missing there. Now, once they do so, you'll have to deal with the boss, who hits pretty hard and has some nasty abilities, plus 3 draconoids, so your tank's gonna have to get spam healed. I've skipped forward so you can actually see a successful attempt on this boss, since watching wipes is kind of dull. So here we go. Now, you can't do anything to these guys while they're praying. You can do barely any damage, and they can't be crowd controlled, and there we go, they pop out, and suddenly massive damage will start to be inflicted on the tank. Now, the main ability you have to watch out here is something called Dark Command. Now, Dark Command is either a 2-layered ability which has 2 different effects, or there is another effect that she also casts. It's got a horror effect which has a damage over time component to it, which hurts like hell. It's difficult to break as well. Also, she can cause random members of the raid to fall to the ground. And this, in our couple of wipes, actually happened on the healer, which caused us to instantly die from the dot. And the dot's doing 3.5k after resistances per second, and will wreck you, especially if your healer's not able to heal you and the rest of the group. It's pretty unpleasant, but yeah, as long as you interrupt her spells, she will go down fairly easily. Nice catch there for me. I'm going to roll on that one, and there's also a Glyph Mastery book there as well. As I say, this boss will catch out the unwary. It may take a couple of attempts for an unexperienced group to get through, but otherwise, nothing to really worry about. Now, thus far, I'm fairly pleased with the creativity shown in terms of the bosses. The first one wasn't that amazing, but the chains mechanic was kinda neat. The second boss, with these evolving mobs that really come out and change the dynamic of the fight and cause you to have to overheal and nuke down in a very focused manner in order to stay alive. You can't tank these things inevitably. They hit so very hard. Bear in mind, we are in ICC 10 level gear across the board here. Most of us are level 80, a couple of us are level 82. But whatever the case, it's fairly good as far as I'm concerned. It's a pretty good set of bosses. It's way better than what we saw in Utgard Keep. Push our way through here, get rid of the Drake. I think the one thing that really disappoints me about this dungeon is the aesthetic of it all. It seems like they could do an awful lot more cultist stuff, and really all it is another lava instance. You can clearly see the elements of the reused art assets there from Blackrock Depths, and that's good, don't get me wrong, but still. Bear in mind, this is not Blackrock Depths. It is in a different place, and as far as I'm aware, Blackrock Depths still exists. The way to get to this dungeon, you have to go to where Blackwing Lair used to be, and there is now a new pathway that you can take, which goes a little bit down and gets you access. Oh, our friend's back, and the debuff is getting even more ridiculous. Yes, funnily enough, I don't want to fight about 20 of those evolved draconoids, so thanks for the aid. Man, he almost died there. That's how much damage those things can do. Almost killed our big guy. And off he goes. I have no idea. Now, this room is fairly interesting. New mechanic here, as far as I can tell. You see those metal globs all over the floor. Now, if they get hit by fire, they turn into mobs, and those mobs are fairly resilient. You can get rid of the fire elementals to turn them back. They're not a massive threat. You see, we tried DPSing them down here. It didn't make all that much of a difference. They do, I believe, leave some kind of stacking fire debuff on the tank. It's either that or the conflagrations do. I can't figure out which. I would think, honestly, it would be those little slime things that do it. But whatever the case, that fire debuff is not pleasant, and you definitely don't want it going into this boss. This boss does have some fairly unique mechanics, and I will show you those momentarily. But this whole globule thing is pretty neat, and I expect to see it in future dungeons, as well as perhaps in some questing areas. It does force you to be careful with your positioning. Okay, here we go. Now you can see here we're taking a massive amount of fire damage. That was actually a mistake by the tank. So this guy has some armor, and you've got to melt the armor in order to do any damage to him. You melt the armor in the giant brazier in the middle of the area right there. The thing is, the longer you keep him in there, the more stacking AoE fire damage he will do to the raid. Tank's got to be on the ball here, and is going to be really good with his positioning, moving in and out. As regards to the risk-reward here, if you hold him in there long enough, you can do loads of bonus damage to him. I imagine there'll probably be an achievement associated with this in some way, but we're just playing it safe right here, just knocking off the armor and then DPSing him down. Seems to me that whenever the fire goes up, it resets, so you then have to melt it. And I imagine standing in the fire is pretty dumb, but I don't see any reason why you do that. Otherwise, again, fairly straightforward, but the tank does have to be awake for this one. Hey, more mage loot. Oh, yes. That must be a placeholder icon for it. And you wonder, well, what is that? What is Beauty? Well, we'll show you a little bit later. Beauty is, in fact, the fourth boss of this instance, and I think you'll get a little bit of a kick out of it. Okay. More trash. Plenty of it. These packs are slightly harder. Again, a lot of casters here. We can deal with it, but you might want to CC one of the mobs particularly, simply because they might become too much for you. What interests me is the possibility for this dungeon on heroic mode. Now, again, it's not massively challenging, but it's certainly more difficult than Utgard Keep was. And if Blizzard pull this off, they could make a really nicely scaling instance that is genuinely challenging at heroic level. We'll push our way through here. You saw some new mobs there, and I'll show you what they do. Those of you who used to do Anchorage 20 and indeed AQ 40 will get a kick out of the reuse of the Anubisath mechanic, the Falling Meteor. If you decide to stick around on your own and get hit by it, it'll hurt a lot, and I'm about to show you a very lucky break on my part, as a meteor comes crashing down on my head, and thankfully, because I was close enough to my mirror images there, I didn't die. Otherwise, that would have one-shot me. So you got to be careful, stack yourself up, and you will be just fine. As regards to how hard those things hit, well, fairly hard, but nothing our tank and healer couldn't deal with. Push our way through here once again. Now, you've seen the level of the loot in here. It's around ICC 25 heroic, give or take. Not as nicely itemized, but pretty close in terms of item level. Ah, Beauty. Now, you remember someone in Upper Blackrock Spire called the Beast? Yes? Well, there you go. That's the Beast's girlfriend. Acts fairly similar to the Beast, and a little bit of Magmadar thrown in there for good measure. Now, I'm not sure I approve of this, because this is killing cute little Corehound puppies. I'm not cool with that. Now, I don't know if these are supposed to pull with the boss itself, but oh, come on. Making us kill these, really? What I would ask of Blizzard is make it an achievement where we don't have to kill them. Just design it in such a way that it's possible to kill the boss without killing these, and maybe, I don't know, free them and take them home as pets. Something like that. I don't like killing puppies. Just because I'm a big, mean, unpleasant WoW podcaster doesn't mean that I'm okay with killing puppies. Blizzard, goddamn. Seriously. Right, okay. Here we go. Not a particularly challenging encounter. It'll spit fire, and it'll spit other kinds of fire. That's basically about it. You've got these plumes that come up from the earth. Don't stand in them, and you'll be just fine. Again, it is kind of odd that you just pull that little puppy pack and kill it, because it's not all that challenging without them. Again, there might be some kind of achievement linked to it, and I imagine the heroic mode will require you to deal with the ads as well, but hey, there you go. Otherwise, nice classic Corehound fight. Fire, fear, and flames. There you go. Sorry, Beauty, but, well, need your stuff. Thank you. And you can skin this, by the way. It's a nice mace. I wish I could use that. Good lord, it's ridiculous. Okay. The little buff on that, I don't know. I don't know where they came up with that, but I'm sorry, I feel terrible for doing that. Absolutely terrible. I was looking to see if there was an achievement, but it doesn't look like they put most of the Cataclysm achievements in the game yet. Good, prioritize the content rather than silly merit badges. Okay, now that was the fourth of 5 bosses. We've got to push our way through all of this trash, and then I shall show you the final boss of this particular instance. These trash packs are about as hard as you're going to get in this instance, but bear in mind, of course, this is the opening instance. It's designed for level 78s to about 81s, and it has to take into account the fact that people might have terrible gear. Again, a lot of possibilities for very cool heroic modes here. Please, Blizzard, please make the heroic modes truly heroic once again. And you know what? I might be a happy little raider. There you go. What else is there down here? This is the final boss room. Not an awful lot of trash to deal with here, which is always nice. It's always nice to get a fairly clear run to the last boss. Couple of fairly unpleasant packs, but nothing you can't deal with. Just focus fire, bring him down. No worries. There's a couple of nice buffs you can spell still. Look out for the haste aura. That's very nice. Okay. Now, will our big green friend come out here? That's a lot of ads. Yeah, it looks like we'll get our big green friend, and he's going to deal with everything other than 2 ads plus the boss. Now, the mechanics of this fight that I could gather, because I was a little bit too busy trying to not die. This is a fairly intense encounter, particularly for someone who has to kite. Yes, indeed, kiting is back. So if you're a hunter, prepare to kite, and you have to kite 2 mobs at the same time. Alternatively, of course, you can get one of your other DPS to do it, but it's a waste of damage and it'll take way too long. So the 2 ads in this encounter have a stacking healing debuff, so they cannot be tanked. They must be kited. But to make matters interesting, the main boss will occasionally switch places and reset threat on everything. So he'll actually teleport to one of the ads, and then one of the ads will swap places with him, and suddenly the ad's on the tank, and the boss is over there near the kiter, and everything goes to hell. So you've got to be really careful with it. And again, watch out for that healing debuff. Okay, here we go. Big green guy, kill everything, and the boss, please. Needless to say, that doesn't happen. But he can get everyone out of the way, and yeah, stopped his heart and he fell over. R.I.P. Big green guy. Oh well, here we go. Okay, you see there in the left here, pulled away those 2 mobs. They can be crowd controlled in terms of slowing, and I believe they can be stunned, but they can't be locked down with something like a polymorph. So kite them around, slow them as much as you can, try and split them up. I say I'm using the arcane spell slow there just to help out, and there's the swap that you saw right there. Makes things a little bit interesting. Gotta get them off the tank. Got to get them off the tank. Otherwise, the tank is in massive trouble. That stacking healing debuff will screw him over something fierce. And you can see his health's going down there. We can't heal him. Gotta get him off. I've taken a little bit of it there and managed to drag them away from the tank. There's the swap once again with the spin, and he teleports in. That's pretty much all there is to it. But again, this is a little bit trickier than it looks. Kiting is a lost art in 5-mans in Wrath of the Lich King, so I expect to see a lot of people dying in this. You know what? Welcome back, Kiting, and indeed crowd control. We've missed you. Indeed we have. Bring him down. We actually lost our kiter there, so oh god, kill it quick. Nuke it down, nuke it down. Yes, indeed, let the Paladin do it. And there you go. That is Blackrock Caverns. That's the first 5-man of the WoW Cataclysm beta. Again, a lot of stuff still to be put in there, like the voice acting and the original music and everything, because there wasn't anything like that. But hey, there you go. Overall assessment of that. That is a fairly good opening instance. Pretty entertaining, some nice mechanics in there, and fairly challenging for a new group. Certainly a lot better than Utgard Keep, and I'm looking forward to see what Blizzard comes up with for the rest of those 5-mans. Now, give me that damn trinket, because wow, it's all mine. Ladies and gentlemen, my name has been Totalbiscuit, and this has been the Blackrock Caverns. I'll see you next time.